dinner before this, and I was eating pizza, and that was a piece of sausage.
Okay.
And I went on the wrong side, and it's just like,
Still bothering you.
Still?
removes to move.
We're good to go, finally, Mr. Gray.
Alright, to call this regular board meeting to order, July 26, 2021, for the Millburn School District. We have roll.
Ms. Ball,
Here.
Mr. Coleman,
Here.
Mr. Gray,
Here.
Mr. Lorenzen, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Federini,
Here.
Mr. Quinones.
Here.
Alright.
Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alright, I did not see any public comments. Do we have any, Jason?
We do have,
We do?
someone here for public.
Oh, great.
Yes, from actual public.
Yeah.
A public.
Email public.
Absolutely.
Are you guys ready?
Yeah, of course.
This is Ms. Lisa
Welcome, thank you
Webster.
for coming.
Hi, Lisa.
Yeah, it's proud. Hello, my name is Lisa Wooster, and I am new to the community. I just enrolled a first and second grader into Millburn. I specifically moved here for the highly rated schools, and I want to thank you for your service on the board. I'm here to speak on behalf of my children that they should have the right to choose not to wear a mask in the school in the fall. It is imperative that we exercise our right to free informed choice and our right to make medical decisions for our children. The choice to do what is best for my child should not be left in the hands of a school board or superintendent. That decision should be left with me, the parent. Masks should be optional for school. 18 months ago we were told it's just 2 weeks to slow the spread. It's just a mask, it's just remote learning, it's just until a vaccine is available, it's just until everyone gets the vaccine, it's just until we learn about all the variants. The goalpost just keeps getting pushed further and further back. When does it end? It ends when we finally step up and really look at the science and do what's best for our children, and stop blaming the government and politicians do. The science research has shown that kids who get COVID have very mild symptoms. They also are not the super spreaders we were originally told they were. The virus does not affect kids the same as it does adults. Last year, our concern was kids could bring COVID home to grandparents or at-risk families. At this point, every adult who wants to be vaccinated has been vaccinated and therefore protected from the virus. According to the CDC, as of now, there have been 401 kids who have died from COVID in the past 18 months. Also, according to the CDC, when I looked it up, they estimated 480 deaths of influenza in 2018. So according to the data from the CDC, the common flu is more of a threat to children than COVID-19. Do we mask our kids every flu season? Do we socially distance and make kids not interact closely with one another? No, we don't. The solution cannot be worse than the initial problem. Masking our children comes with an entire new set of problems. It is damaging to kids from a social perspective when they can't see the faces of other children. Some kids' faces are breaking out in rashes. My 2 young children both wear glasses. It's extremely difficult for them to try and wear glasses with their masks on. Their glasses fog up and they can't see, and if they take their glasses off, they can't see. This hinders their learning a great deal. My kids come home frustrated and anxious because they have a hard time seeing and learning at school, which also leads to negative thoughts and feelings about school. Why should my kids struggle in school because another parent who has their child masked is scared of the less than 1% chance their kid could possibly die of COVID? Why is that parent's concern more important than my kid's ability to learn in school? A blanket statement that masks are required for all children is not servicing the needs of every child. Any science that supports wearing a mask also is only valid if you are wearing a mask correctly. How many students in elementary school do you think wear their mask correctly? They don't touch it, they don't pull it under their nose, they don't pull it down when they sneeze or cough. Most adults I know don't wear their mask correctly. This is unrealistic, and we all know it is. Therefore, masks are not effective if they're not worn properly. So why require masks? Over half the states in the U.S. have ditched the mask requirement. Just 15 minutes north, the entire Kenosha School District has made masks optional for students. Many school districts across Illinois, including some in Lake County, are making masks optional for students, and the number continues to rise as we get closer to school. I just got a message that Libertyville Elementary just made the decision to make masks optional. Just last week, for those of you who are Milwaukee Bucks fans, may have watched the game on TV. 65,000 people were packed into an indoor stadium, not wearing a mask and not practicing social distancing. There were another 15,000 people outside. Children, grandparents, and parents all packed indoors not having to wear a mask. It was optional. I asked my friend who was at the game about what was the percentage about how many people who were wearing a mask. He said about 1%. These rules are arbitrary, and it is seriously laughable to look at our children in a couple weeks and tell them they have to put a mask on. They have been going to the park, mall, vacations, pools, playing sports all summer without a mask. I know some parents' arguments for masking all children is now the Delta variant. According to the CDC, there is no data showing that the Delta variant is any more dangerous than the original strain. And in previous studies, it shows that as flu strains mutate, they usually get weaker. So again, when does it end? It ends when brave people stand up and do what's right for our children. Our children have been held hostage for the past year and a half. In 2020, child obesity is up, and suicides and suicide attempts in children is up. It is time that we be champions for our kids and allow them to resume normal life in which they can breathe freely. In conclusion, I beg you to please make masks optional. You have a rare opportunity right now to be a hero, to stand up for the kids in this community. We have taken so much from our children in the last year. With vaccines out and the numbers so low in Lake County, it just doesn't make sense to force these kids to wear masks 6 to 7 hours a day. It's heartbreaking. I want my kids to go to school and be able to see the board and breathe freely. I want what is best for my children, and masking them up all day to protect them from a virus that my children already had, with a 99% plus survival rate, is not what's best for my kids. Our kids have no voice. It's up to us to advocate for them. Please reach out to me if you want to discuss this further, and please take this not as a challenge to your authority, but as an opportunity to be a hero for the kids and to be on the right side of history. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I should have prefaced this a little bit before you got going. When we do get public comments, which we don't very often, we do actually just, take that feedback. We appreciate you coming out. We appreciate all the information you gave us. We don't necessarily address the individual comment at that time, but we do always take it into consideration. So we do appreciate you coming out.
No, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we did have one email, right? Was that considered a public comment or no? Okay. So I wasn't sure about one. So is that the only one then?
That's it.
Okay.
At this time, can we appoint Stephen President Pro Tem so that we can steal his autograph later for some official documents?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I move to appoint Stephen President Pro Tem so he can sign documents.
Thanks, Peter.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Pederini?
Yes.
Mr. Quinones?
Yes.
The motion passed.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lorenzen?
Mr. Lorenzen is a yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
All right. So that carries, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So public comments. Does anyone have an addition of non-action items? Would you like to add information discussion for the agenda tonight? No. All right. We'll go on to action items. Action item A is approval to renew the annual EdRed membership in the amount of $2,250. Jason, you want to give a little background on EdRed for the?
So EdRed is a lobbying group that we have subscribed to as a board. They lobby in Springfield for issues that are pertain to suburban schools like ours. There's big lobbying groups for Chicago, obviously has a big influence. This group is more focused on the suburbs in this area. Downstate has different advocacy groups just to get our voice heard, because when we're under the big umbrella of IASB, which is another group that we belong to that also has a voice in Springfield, sometimes there's some differences on what's good for every school district in Lake County and what is important, or state of Illinois, and what's important for school districts in our area and with our needs. So it just gives us a little bit stronger of a presence in Springfield. Generally, they support and line up with IASB, nothing crazy different, but there are times, especially when looking at the funding model, where we want our voice heard and say, hey, this impacts us too. Don't forget about our school district. So that's it.
All right, anybody have any questions about that? I'm sure you've all seen the email updates, right? More frequent while they're in session?
Yes.
No questions? All right, let's entertain a motion to approve it. Item A? Anybody?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the renewal of the ad rent subscription.
All right, second?
Second.
Did you do it?
All right, can we have a roll call, please, Rebecca?
Ms. Foss,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen,
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Federini,
Yes.
Mr. Quinones,
Yes.
the motion passed.
It's like Horton hears a who.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, so next, action item B, is approve up to 100 hours of consultation support, for the technology of Joanne, Rothundi, thank you, at a rate of $75 per hour.
So Joanne has helped us in the past year. She's our former technology director, and she's helped us transition to help train newer staff as we're learning more things. And with technology being as important as it is, and reporting and state reports and all of the things that touch technology, we would like to have her kind of on the side, and like to have the ability to call her and say, hey Joanne, we're having problems with Power School, we don't know how to do this report, can you help us out?
So is this 100 billable hours just when we need her, or
As
consecutive?
needed, if needed.
As needed, if needed.
We may
Okay.
not need her that much.
This is just gonna cover.
This should cover the year.
Okay. Good. Anything else?
And she's not gonna bill us for extra hours, she's not trying to get back into the education process. We try not to bug her, we try not to use her. Generally, I'm asked, hey, can I call Joanne on this? And I'll say yes, or can we figure this out? But this is a lot cheaper than calling other consulting firms that would be happy to help us at much higher rates. And she knows our school inside and out. She knows the technology, at least for the Power School and other items. So
Did she retire or?
she retired. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly.
Thanks, Jason. Anybody have any questions, comments about this one? No? Good,
I'd like to make a motion to approve 100 hours of consultation support for technology for Joanne Rothundi at a rate of $75 per hour.
Sorry, do we have to do these individually?
We do.
We do?
I second the motion. You're welcome.
collaboration.
That's it, yeah.
Beautiful.
Teamwork makes the
Can we have a roll call, please, Verizon?
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen,
Mr. Lorenzen?
Yes.
Mr. Federini,
Yes.
Mr. Quinones,
Yes.
Ms. Foss,
Yes.
the motion passed.
All right, moving on to item C, approval of up to 100 hours of consultation support for special education services at a rate of $75 per hour.
Okay, so this would be for Elizabeth Keith,
Okay.
would be the person that we're hiring. She just retired this last year as our special ed coordinator, director. Adam Rollins is now in that role, and he also said, can I get some help with some of the higher, trickier situations? He calls her Like this week he called about a situation where he's looking at caseloads and she helped work him through that and say, okay, this is what we need to look at. And she's also helping with outside placements. If we need to place a student with particular needs into a specialized services, whether it be through a CEDAW program or a private placement, she knows contacts in the area and can help direct that and say, this is what you need to know, this is what you need to do, help him out. Also, she's helped out with grants. So again, we're just looking for the ability to call her up and without feeling guilty about too much.
Not letting it go.
She's volunteered many hours already, but feel a little bit guilty keep bugging her, so Adam would like to just be able to do that once in a while.
Makes sense. Anybody have any comments or concerns about this one? No? Get a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve up to $100 of consultation support for our special education services at a rate of $75 per hour.
Second?
Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen?
Mr. Lawrenson?
Yes.
Mr. Federini?
Yes.
Mr. Quinones?
Yes.
Ms. Boss?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
The motion passed.
Alright, item D. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
Oh,
You
I
wanna say something?
just said thank you.
Oh.
Appreciate it.
Alright, and then adding 15 days of the contract, item D, to Suzanne DeCourcy.
Yep.
Yeah, for beginning of SY 2021 iPad and technology support.
These two we
School
could
year,
combine.
is that what SY stands for? Did I
Yeah.
just?
We should be able to group these two because they're the same, right?
They're the same.
Yeah.
Alright, so we can combine item D and E, everybody's on board with that?
Mhm.
Nobody wants to pull item E to talk about it for a while, no? Alright, Jason?
So again, with tech support with our teachers starting up and us being shorter staffed in the last 2 years with technology, at the same time our technology needs are increasing and our training for technology and bringing new people on board, whether they be teachers, paraprofessionals, or administrators, we need support in that area. So they are currently, Suzanne and Corinne are both in the media center, so they're half-time media center, half-time tech integration specialist, but their jobs go beyond that in supporting our technology needs throughout the building. So several years ago, we moved, instead of having one librarian for the district, we put moved that FTE into a 0.5 and a 0.5, so we have that a person in each building, and then had 0.5 tech integration, and 0.5 tech integration is the other portion of their job. So they have to set up the library, and at the same time, at the beginning of the year, they're setting up Schoology, for example, and Seesaw, and all of our other programs, curricular programs for students and teachers. So they're super busy at this time of the year, starting August 1st. They're in here full time, and I'd like to get them use their expertise as much as possible.
So where does the 15 days come in? Like how is it currently set up as far as like, because you said they're only working half days, right?
No, they're working full days. They're 0.5 tech integration and 0.5.
Okay, so they just
But these are
switch
just-
hats.
They just switch hats.
Okay.
They're the same person.
Okay. Got it. Alright. Questions, concerns? Get a motion to approve items D and E?
I'd like to make a motion to add 15 days to the contract of both Suzanne DeCourcy and Corinne Lancaster, as noted in agenda items 6D and E, for the beginning of school year 2021 iPad and technology support.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lorenzen?
Yes.
Mr. Federini?
Yes.
Mr. Quinones?
Yes.
Ms. Boss?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
The motion passed.
Alright, now onto our consent agenda, including approval of all the minutes as listed. Personnel report, is that all? And hiring, treasurer's report, alright. Does anybody have anything that they wanna pull from the consent agenda for additional discussion? Alright. Entertain a motion to approve item 6F, consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve all those items under the consent agenda.
Seconded.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Quinones,
Yes.
Ms. Boss,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzen,
Yes.
the motion passed.
I say yes too.
You said- did I-
Whatever, Ronnie.
Oh, I skipped you, I'm sorry, Mr.
I'll remember
Federini?
that, yes.
He said yes,
I'm sorry.
it's okay.
You gotta say it like John.
Yeah.
Alright, can we make sure that, do we have, John here in the attendance for the role too?
Yes, we have him entering at 7-Eleven.
Okay. Entering a 7-Eleven, and what did he purchase? Right? Bad joke. Alright. Information discussion, item 7. Jason, summer school updates?
It started today, successfully, and, all the kids got home eventually to their correct parents and locations, which is always good. This is a big, when you have an event like summer school and you're trying to get routes and organize classes like this that aren't routine, it always makes me nervous, but, we did okay today. And, summer school's going well with a bunch of kids. Man, the K-5 group, there's a lot of kids participating, which is wonderful. So I'm excited about that opportunity. It goes on for this week, 4 days through Thursday, and then next week through Thursday, and then it's done. We have a week break, and then regular school starts.
There are more students in this one than the first
About the
session?
same.
Same.
Yep. I think we had to get, for just the elementary was 160 iPads ready, so 160 kids in K-5. It's pretty good. That's real good.
Well, glad to hear that's going well.
And another 50 or so kids, I think, at the middle school, so that's pretty good.
Alright, moving on to item B.
Wait, sorry, just
Go ahead.
quick
Yep.
thing. I don't know, Jason, are you gonna cover it, but I just was curious, do we have the iPads, the new iPads yet?
Some of them,
They're coming in waves?
yes.
190 plus 230. And
Yeah.
supposedly more came today, but the last time I looked, they hadn't come yet, so. So what is that?
Honestly, I'm getting nervous about it, but we got 3 weeks, and they're trickling in 100, 200 at a time.
Have we, did we send all of our old ones in, or do we still have?
They're all gone.
They're all done? Okay.
Right, so we have nothing.
I have one.
You have one. Yes. Nice job. I'll donate mine for a temporary for the kids too. So I anticipate they'll get in on time, but it's gonna be close.
What vendor do we use? It's Apple directly, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what the tech team did is set them up for summer school, however many we need, 160 for summer school, and then they'll take those back and wipe them and start over, and then we'll distribute during the first few days of school. Middle school already has theirs, so they're going to be fired up and ready to go, which is great. So we'll probably start at 5th grade here would be my guess, and we work with Suzanne and Corinne and Ernest and Tom on getting those ready. Start with the 5th graders and work our way down. Kindergarten's they don't start with iPads right away anyway.
Right.
They're just trying to get them used to getting out the bus and coming into school. It's really fun to see the little new kindergartners coming in today. Man, that one, she looked at that last step. She was like, I don't know if I can make it. It was really funny. Like, I forget how small they are at the beginning of kindergarten. Step down and it was really cute.
That's fun.
When do we start in the fall? The 16th?
Kids come on the 19th.
19th. Okay, I thought it was one of those two. Thank you.
So we have time. We're gonna be okay, as long as they keep trickling in. Our cases, I think all the cases are on the way, or most of them.
And we've only gotten 220 so far.
Right, and they're for the younger.
The Brent Haven, whichever one that is.
Oh,
The one that was a smaller number.
okay.
So probably is the lower kids. I don't think the other ones have come yet though. I've
No.
been checking on that because I have to notify Apple when we receive items.
430 are on the way.
Are these brand new iPads?
These are brand new.
So this is, do they have a headphone jack or are they like the new Apple where they plug in?
I don't know.
Because I got what's in his school supplies and it just hit me. Cause they say, get a straight jack
Yeah.
instead of having curved, but I was like, wow, I wonder if, because that's gonna be expensive,
I think the iPads still have the
jack.
regular
I'm
jack.
not 100% sure, but I think.
Sean,
you're
does
right.
yours have the regular jack on it?
I guess as I see it.
That's an old, I think.
Yeah, I have the old one on the top.
You have the old one?
So they might need
I
that.
will look at that.
But I think they come with
Adapter
that
or
section,
something.
the little dongle extension, that,
Yeah,
Converter.
that's gonna be,
No, they stopped including that with iPhone.
okay.
And
With
then
the
but I don't think that the iPad ever converted to that. I don't know 100% sure though.
Right, I believe that's true, I just don't know for sure either.
But if it were iPhones we were giving them,
I have a
those
new
would be no good headphones because they do not come with that adapter
I have a new
anymore.
iPad, they don't have the headphone jack,
Oh really?
no.
Answers the question. So that's interesting.
Yikes. Always something. Okay, I will check on that. ASAP.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, it's either the adapter or Bluetooth, right?
Yeah.
Would we have to provide the adapter?
If it needs one, probably. We're telling them they need to use headphones, which I don't think we want them all listening in class with.
well, we charge them for the cable though, the charging cable and stuff, so, and they're paying for could just be a fee if they lose it, or when they lose it.
Oh, they're when they lose it.
Yeah.
That's
So
the
we
easiest,
probably,
that's the
provide that one.
easiest
I think we
thing to
provide
lose.
the first one, that's typically what we've done.
So did it come with that then?
I don't remember, I've had it for a while.
No.
It probably did though, I'm guessing that it did.
If they come with it,
I will
can we,
check.
can we open a new one and, not right now, but investigate it?
Well, the kids are using them, so, today.
So we'll know soon.
He's loud in there. Alright, thanks for
Alright.
pointing that out. Alright, now on to 7B, summer school director stipend.
So when we first looked at summer school and the stipend back in the spring, I estimated and said, this is what I think this should be as far as the salary goes. Carissa has done a great job and she's put in a lot more hours than I expected and that she expected that job to be. So I'm going to propose, and you don't have to decide tonight, but I just want to get this on the table for our next board meeting. I'm probably thinking like a $2,000 additional boost. The original was $5,000, I believe, and so another $2,000 for her time would be great, because she's putting in a lot of work, and probably even beyond that. So, I appreciate what she's done and how she's managed all of the different details. It's gone very well. It's a tough job. So I just want to give everybody a heads up on that.
So when is her second, is it 2 payments for the stipend?
I don't know, she's probably already been paid out, or did she get paid out?
She's been paid 2 payments. I've gotta go back and look how much those were, but I know, I did look the other day and she'd been paid 2.
I mean, because that's what potential, if we're adding it.
By this point, there's still this 2 weeks, but all the prep has already been done.
Right.
So, I'm just thinking about her job being over and us having a cow and another meeting beforehand. We're not able to approve it tonight, are we?
No.
Alright. So,
at the next meeting though, we are gonna need,
Special meeting?
a
Yeah,
special
for
meeting
sure.
to approve putting the, no, wait. No, well, we could have one. I don't think, we don't have to put the budget on display until the actual board meeting in August, the second meeting. But you could have a special meeting if you wanted to do that. Otherwise, it would just be retroactive and we do it whenever the board approves it.
In 10 years, I have not had an August special meeting.
Now you have.
We have?
We've approved new staff at that.
No,
first meeting.
not had.
Oh,
Yeah, every
okay.
year we
You
have.
always
one.
have had, yeah.
Always. I think we're 10 for 10.
Yeah, we've done that where we've approved new staff.
Because things need to get decided or changed or whatever, so things happen fast at this time of the year. So the next meeting will be a special meeting, anticipated.
Okay.
On the same token, I wanna talk about the possibility of a district tech coordinator stipend. There's coordination with the district, with Joanne retiring. There's certain things that aren't being communicated as effectively as possible, and I'm not available as much as I'd like to be to communicate those things at a district level. Corinne and Suzanne do a great job at the building and the principals and working, but there's some things that, with the tech team and coordinating, for example, the iPad rollout or some other items, Schoology, because Schoology is a middle school product and it's also goes down to third grade. There's just things that could be coordinated and leading that team in that meeting. I'm just thinking about what that would take. I don't have a job description yet, which is not fair for you to make any decisions on right now without a job description. Please don't do that. But I just want to get that on the table, that this is something that I'm considering, making a job description and posting an opening and going to you to ask for that position and just so you're not surprised when it comes up. It's something that I've been contemplating for a while, how to manage the technology team, take a little bit off my plate with all the juggling a lot of the different aspects of the job, and that would help.
Jason, why is this designated a stipend versus a full-time headcount?
Very good question. Here's what I would prefer. I would prefer that the district hire a technology and curriculum director of curriculum and technology or instruction, whatever we want to label it, another FTE of administrative. I think that's something that we need and could use and would be very busy. I just don't know how, with the district our size, how we could justify that at this point. And so I haven't made that recommendation unless the board is willing to entertain that.
What's the stipend typically?
I don't know.
Oh, because I think
That would
stipend,
be
I
like
think.
a salary then, where we'd be creating a position that would help.
Yes, if we
coordinate,
create a
yeah.
position, you're taking you're adding a whole additional person to the role, on an administrative level, and then we're talking in the $120,000 range.
Yeah.
Are there,
Total benefit package.
Yeah.
are there consulting groups that could come in, take a look, analyze what you have, and make recommendations and an action plan
Yes.
for existing staff then to execute against?
Yes,
I would think,
that is an option, and that's something that, I could coordinate at some point, or someone with a stipend to do that could coordinate and manage that.
Are we saying like a teacher would be paid the stipend
Yes.
if they were doing something after school,
Yes,
above and beyond the normal job to coordinate, okay.
yes.
Okay.
So that's, yeah, exactly where I was going is with the stipend, it's adding on to outside of their job description, adding on to something else versus a whole another headcount. Could a whole headcount be busy in our district? Oh, yeah. For sure.
now considering you're saying the curriculum and technology, would that person then, I know this is hypothetical, but is it a model that's repeated, could be repeated from other schools? would that person then look to integrate technology into the curriculum in the future? And have like a roadmap created where they would just kind of free things up from all the paperwork and?
We're already doing that. The reason I say curriculum and technology together is because those are two areas where we have had district level leadership in the past, and we currently don't with our new administrative model. So with our new model, we have the same number of people we reshuffled and pushed out to solve other issues that were surfacing, or to support staff in different ways and support our kids differently, which I think is great and we needed to do. And now you have a little bit of a weakness in a different area. So technically, I'm the technology director, so to speak, from a different level, and the curriculum director, and which is fine. But I have limits to how many pieces of information and decisions and problems I can solve in a day and communicate out. So.
Yeah, so how long has it been since we've had a dedicated curriculum director?
7 years.
7 years, okay.
Wasn't that when we had the first assistant principal?
Yep.
So basically, we
So
dropped
your
it, we just
assistant principal
took that
acted in that
position, made it
position?
assistant principal.
Which is great, which is necessary. I don't want to devalue that. And some of the curriculum work, part of this is going to have to be at the building level. So our assistant principals are doing curriculum work. Our principals are doing curriculum work. I'm doing some curriculum work. We're dividing that up. It's good. It's just a transition time to know what that's going to look like. Next year will be the first year that we've been operating under the new model that we've been transitioning into for 6 years. So that's it in a nutshell. But yeah, my dream would be to have a curriculum director / assessment technology, because everything's so integrated anyway, which is why we moved to the model of for the libraries, a library and a tech integration specialist, because every kid comes through the library at some point, and they were modeling some of the new technology in the library, and so teachers were exposed to it and children were exposed to it, and they were able to support teachers, because teachers would say, oh wow, what app are you using for that? Can I use that too? And then that's how we moved into that integration and did it more organically versus trying to send teachers to a conference and pick up technology. So we're doing a lot of these things already with the integration, and every piece of curriculum that we purchase now has a technology component. So our reading program has a technology component where we are fostering with children. Our math program has a technology component. Our social studies at the middle school has a technology component. Our elementary science has a technology component. All of them have technology components to them. And we use the iPad for everything.
Technology to kind of augment the reading and
Enhance.
But how about testing? Yeah, conducting tests through technology.
Which ones?
I'm not talking like standardized
Oh.
tests, but classroom materials.
Yeah, depends on the content. Our middle school teachers, I would say, do that more often. Would that be quizzes,
Yeah.
tests through school? They push that out through Schoology, and I would say that they are doing it more often. The lower you get, the less, and that's okay. I'm not judging and saying that's good or bad.
From a high school perspective, we're moving to that. Almost all tests we're going to be giving them on iPads through, we use Canvas, that's like our educational software.
Yeah.
So it's like everything's getting loaded on there, and, you know.
Yeah.
You get results instantly.
It's pretty sweet, yeah. I mean, boom, pops up, percentages, all, it's really pretty cool.
Take out a lot of overhead.
Yeah.
Teaching overhead.
No more scantrons, man.
Yeah.
We're zipping, zipping them through.
I think it would be, probably helpful and probably the right thing for us to also kind of review how that affects the finances for the district. Right, if we were to move forward with adding a headcount, or even just do the stipend, or bring in a consulting firm to provide that, like, what's that cost look like, and then how's that gonna affect this year's budget, and then moving forward for the next few years, right?
Yeah. We'd have to before, I mean, a stipend, my assumption is be much less.
Right.
I'd be comfortable
Right.
voting on that, but the others are big.
I think that's,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what the approach is.
And my guess is consulting, and I don't know, but my guess is consulting would be probably close to half of what you would have in a full-time headcount. You wouldn't have that same, benefit of having people in place ensuring that it's being executed as planned.
Right. The advantage of using a third party is that they're easily adjusted as needed.
Yeah, it's scalability, but, yeah.
Scalability.
But they charge you for everything they do.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking, my guess would probably be half of a headcount. But, not saying that that's a good thing, cause I'm not sure you get that full half of a headcount.
Benefit of giving a teacher a stipend too is they're probably gonna be someone with a good deal of experience with everything collectively, curriculum, the technology.
It's a good short-term strategy, I think.
That's definitely a long-term problem though.
Yeah,
Cause that's not
well,
what you want your superintendent doing.
Right.
Or
You
your
want 'em
assistant
focused on-
principals, yeah.
Yeah, on other things, and it's great, obviously, that you're not complaining about it, but there's probably better ways to use those resources.
Right. Yes, I'm recognizing that piece. Part of it is, as an administrative group, we're transitioning this new team. We don't know what our needs are going to be
right.
yet. We're still trying to figure out where all these roles fit. And we've been talking about this for a very, very, very long time, trying to piece together where everything should go and how to manage it. And so it's a challenge. It's always a challenge. Staffing is always a challenge in any school district and corporation to know where you get your biggest benefit. We're kind of right in that bubble area. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I have a lot more conversations to go with a lot more people on to narrow that down and to be specific about what we're looking for and what that would involve, and to make that realistic for someone too. Because that all of it has to be realistic for somebody to take on or they'll burn out.
Do most of the other districts, surrounding districts, have a tech lead?
Everybody has, no, well, sort of, yes and no. Everybody does it differently, which is, so there are districts our size who have an outside firm that they would utilize more. As far as our total head count, we're pretty typical. We have good tech support, but we're using it. We're integrating it more than other districts are too, I think. So, our focus has been on the classroom and educational purposes and pushing that, not just having the device and using it as a technology tool for production per se, but using it as a learning tool. And we do a lot of training with our teachers, and that's where Suzanne and Corinne, where I would like them to focus more. Last year was atypical. Let's hope, for heaven's sake. Corinne and Suzanne were pulled away. All we were doing all year, the administrative team and Corinne and Suzanne were day by day trying to keep the district afloat and keep kids somewhat engaged and keep all the balls in the air and doing logistics. All we were doing is logistics, decision making, boom, 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 boom all year. So now we're this summer, we're getting back into reflecting a little bit. We've had conversations about student learning and growth. I know, it's weird. But it's true, we're so focused on that, we want to get back to that student learning piece, and I want Suzanne and Corinne focused on elevating our teachers' instructional practices and doing that integration. And a lot of their time last year and in other years is spent, I don't want to be trite about this, but fixing projectors or doing other things, which becomes very important in the moment. And you know, I don't want them not to do that, but I also want their overall focus, if I'm being clear enough, to be in that direction as much as possible. How that looks, how we do that and support that, do we need to add other tech support? We have Tom and Ernest. Ernest is retiring in December. He's our network specialist. Network specialist, that job has changed significantly, and that's something that's more outsourceable to a third party, because they can monitor the network from any place now. Because almost everything now is cloud-based. We have very few local server supported.
So is that position then something that could potentially go away?
Well, it could change. What he's doing now is more support, you know, help desk support as well. His job has changed. He's still doing the network, and that's important, but his job has definitely changed over the years. So yeah, how that all looks, all I'm saying is, I want you to be aware for tonight, and had a lot of conversations, and I don't mean to bring you guys down too far into the weeds, but we will have more to come. Specificity, and it is changing. The whole team is changing.
Is this something you think you'll have a good idea of before the school year, or is it going to take longer than that?
I hope to.
Okay.
Yep, at least early in the school year.
Anybody else? While we're in the weeds?
It is a patch. I mean, it is a temporary fix.
Yeah,
that
right.
we're looking at.
Alright, item 7D, thought exchange subscription, is that up already?
Yes, our subscription is up, and they have raised the price. I believe it's going from $12,000 a year to $18,000 a year.
Jeez.
Special deal.
50%? But you must act now?
Yeah,
Don't tell your friends about it?
They told me in June.
Buy one, get one 50% more.
Yeah.
That's about right.
But that wasn't a special conditional rate.
It was,
They they're closing out that, as they transition to their new model, they're closing out what we did as a one user system. They don't want to support smaller groups like us, is what they're
I'd
saying.
beat them up a bit.
So I've asked them to go back to corporate for the 5th time.
Where's John on this one?
Yeah.
Get him on.
Beat him up a little.
The negotiator.
I've asked them to go back to corporate again,
Yeah.
and I've asked them this every year, because I thought 12,000 was too high for what our purposes were. But it was so useful and valuable, and on one hand, it's great. What I would like to do is join with Antioch. So if we can find another group who uses this, Antioch High School uses the same program, I can join and become a user in their group. So if you buy the full enterprise system,
Do they really
it's-
allow that though, Jason?
well, it's
Or like a
28,000.
different legal entity?
They were talking about the Regional Office of Education purchasing this as an enterprise system. It's $28,000 for the full blown, and you can have unlimited rooms going. So I can do it, you can do it. That's what it's designed for.
Wow.
So because we have an association and affiliation with Antioch, like, it's the same price for U46 as it is for us. So, or Woodland. The Woodland, $28,000 on a $100 million budget, not so bad, but for us, it's a big chunk of money. So, I would like to join with Antioch and say, can I you know,
Yeah.
on your coattails, you don't have to train me, I already know how to use it.
You already talked to Jen about it?
I've talked in the past to Adam, their tech director, he's okay with it, but I
It's
want thought exchange to.
Just supplements the cost for them? Do we pay them or do we pay?
Yeah, we would work out something, to split the cost or.
Sounds like
Yeah, you
a
probably need
no-brainer.
an intergovernmental agreement or something,
Yeah,
maybe.
it sounds surprising too.
We'll write up a little IGA for you right now.
Can you do that?
Sign right here.
So, I have a little bit of a quick presentation, so just as a reminder of what we use this for, we have used it in the past for fall planning, school calendar, remote learning. We've used it to strengthen community, parent university questions. We've used it for staff professional development to determine what our staff development needs might be. It is a good tool. It could also be used for other items. These are just samples. Could use it for students to see what their preferences would be, which would be kind of cool if I could get them involved in it, but I was up for it last year and then this COVID stuff happened and kind of needed them to be together.
Can I ask you a question real quick? With the 12,000 version that we got, there was some limitations about the amount of questions we could ask in a given period, or no?
The number of administrators.
Yep, it's a
Okay.
one, they call it a room.
So it's just
So
one
this-
room.
Yep. So I own the room, the chat room. Kind
But wasn't I thought there were some limitations you described? Like, does that mean that you could only be hosting one question
one
at a time?
No, as it turns out, you can do more than one time, which I did last year.
To different audiences?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But you couldn't do it at the same time as me. That was the deal.
Got it.
This just gives us a little history. They calculate out if I were to go, or any of us were to go to hear from each person, it would be 71 hours. If we're to do a focus group, it would be equivalent to 85 hours. They're doing this to sell their program, but it does give a little bit of perspective about the power of the tool. And that's it.
So Jason, for the administrator role though, that's a named user, right?
Yep.
And they're saying that we could partner up with any other district in the area?
They are not yet. I'm asking them
Okay.
if we can do that.
You're asking thought exchange. Wow, I'd be really surprised.
Me too,
Really surprised.
but they know they're gonna lose us
Yeah.
because we can't afford the 24,000 or 28,000, whatever that full level is.
Do you remember what the alternative was? Remember that other,
Yeah, you sent me.
Splunk?
Yeah,
Was it Splunk?
I think that was more expensive.
It was more expensive, but I don't know if it was at the 18.
It was over 20 some. And that was designed more for business than schools, but it could, you could
Same
still
thing.
use it, same game.
Same thing.
Interesting.
So that is on the, that will be on our next approval agenda for an up or down vote to say yes or no. So be thinking about that. If you have any questions, or if you have questions now, I'll take them, or if you have questions later, I will take them.
So is the only conversation you're having with them to see if we're able to partner with Antioch, what is it, 117?
117.
To share in their enterprise that they already own, they already have the full version. Are you also asking them like to lower the price at all, just for
No.
us? No?
Oh, I ask them every year.
Missing that.
In fact, the first time I met the owner, the first time I learned about this, I met the owner and talked to him about it. I said, I love your product. This is amazing. But here's who I am. I'm a small school district, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of small school districts in the country that can't afford this. He said, yeah, I know. Well, think about it. And now they're even moving away from what I thought was pretty expensive in the first place. So I I have asked and will continue to ask because I like the product.
So are you thinking they're just gonna continue to raise every year, or is there a way to, at 18, to get locked at that rate?
No.
Everybody raises every year, just not, usually not 50%.
Right.
Usually it's more like 5 to 15%.
Generally, it's
Well, they're
about-
doing it because they're just eliminating the product.
That's not
They're
what we
saying
wanna focus
it's
on.
that high level or nothing.
Yeah.
That's what they wanna focus on, that's their business model, so, okay.
Man,
No other competitors, the similar
Yeah.
product, or you
There
said,
are,
but they're all around the same
I
cost
can look
structure?
again.
It was,
There's-
yeah,
there's
the
more.
one that I
but also
recommended, I
this
knew
platform
was
is just
more
so
than
easy.
this.
Oh, was
In
it?
fact, I think it was at least 18, cause it was just a, okay, that's the quote, no brainer.
Yeah.
Alright, enemy,
Item E, fall return to school plan and mitigation strategies. So I will present what I've got now tonight. Earlier this evening, the frequently asked questions document that we've been waiting for from the state to receive, we got it tonight at 6 o'clock. So I haven't looked thoroughly at the whole entire document, I just breezed through a couple of items. I didn't see anything too shocking, but they confirm what we've been hearing in some levels. So we'll talk about what we know tonight and what our next steps are, and really kind of start educating each other on what we can do, what we should do, what we need to do, et cetera, for mitigation for the fall. And as Lisa explained tonight, there's, and you've seen emails, and I'm sure have talked to your community, and if you have a family member, they have a different opinion on what we should do to open schools. Two different things. One is vaccines, and the other is, well, three different things. Vaccines, masks, and quarantine. Oh, and testing. So some people have opinions on testing, whether we should do surveillance testing or not. I'll talk about that as well. But mainly the heaviest seems to be on vaccines and masks, what to do about that. For schools. Again, the guidance is muddy. I know the intent of the guidance and the way that it's worded, and what I did read tonight was not great. So it's still, it's like, we want you to do this, but you don't. If you don't,
Yeah.
this is what you must do. But if you don't, for schools that choose not to, here's what's happening. So I'll try and talk about all of that in some sort of cohesive thought.
Do you have a summary here of all the different guidances? Because there's American Academy of Pediatrics, Illinois Department of Health, CDC,
Lake County Department
Lake
of
County.
Health.
ISB.
Yeah. And ISB.
and ISP.
That's it. That I read. I mean, there's more, but
Yeah.
those are the ones that I'm looking at.
National Institute of Health.
And none of them are like completely 100% aligned.
Correct.
There's like variation.
No.
Okay.
So in general, I can speak to the American Academy of Pediatrics. Their recommendation is for 100% masking in schools indoors for everybody, even if you're vaccinated. That's their recommendation, which is above the CDC. The CDC is for masking, if we're talking about masking, for everybody within the school who is unvaccinated to be masked when they're indoors. That's the CDC recommendation. So the main mitigation strategies that we're talking about for our school are vaccination, social distancing, contact tracing in combination with quarantine and isolation, screening testing, which means that we would screen test for the vaccine, do a PCR test once a week for all of our students, unless they opt out.
That's the nose one?
No, this is a spit test.
No?
It's a PCR test, that's 98% accurate. Pretty good.
Except the number of false positives, because it still detects the RNA even after there's no threat of transmission. So there's,
But
all
it's
of
less
these
than 1%
things.
of those.
What's that?
The false positives are almost, it's like 1 or 2% false positive. It's really low.
It's higher than that. All of these have positives and
Oh, yeah.
negatives. Because
No-
you're gonna
nothing-
wait for days to get those results.
24 hours.
They now have one, who is it, Roche now
It's that
has one that they
Shield
said they're
thing,
putting it up?
Yeah.
The what?
Shield
Called
test.
Shield is the program.
Roche
What
has
is-
it?
There was a seminar through the Illinois School Board Association. I can forward it to you.
So what is the 24-hour period? Is it after the culture is complete that they communicate the results, or is it the whole process from beginning to end?
Well, I think we'd have to watch it again, I'm not a nurse.
Yeah. Well, not a nurse, but just what they say, because that's what I don't, the hard part is getting, the culture and it's done.
I think part of it was to help with the quarantining. There's a test to stay protocol. So instead of being like, you automatically, because you were next to this person who has COVID, if they test, then they think, as long as they're testing, it's like a 2, 5, and 7 day period, they can actually stay in school. So I think part of it is, that's what I read, that's what I understood from what I read. But I think part of this testing is to allow us to, I think the idea of these layering, all these layers here, is all about keeping the kids in school as consistently as possible and not having these popcorn absences. There was another point where they said, the close contact, who needs to quarantine is based on if there's masking or not. So much is about where is our priority, and I think for me, our priority is keeping the kids in school as consistently as possible. So that test to stay thing is pretty enticing. I know I'd want my son to take it, if it meant he could stay in school. And not
So
miss.
I'll
What
go into
about-
Yeah, it's
what about
interesting. I don't know what
availability?
it does to prevent the spread,
Jason?
The test to stay?
You looked at that at all?
No, I think it just lets you stay.
Yeah.
Then you're following the guidance, and then you can stay in the school, and you're not
Yeah.
missing chunks all the time.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna have to do that with 3 feet. So that, according to the guidelines, puts us in a tighter spot.
Yeah.
With the layering, if we can't have that 6-foot layer, then we have to depend on some of these other ones more.
That's exactly what I'm gonna go into even more detail, but that's right. So these are all of the mitigation strategies, not in a particular order. We don't have that information yet. And then I put on where we have some flexibility in local control, because I want to get to what Vanessa is talking about bringing up, which is right, is what are the consequences of doing it or not doing some of these things, and what do we have control over? We can't control technically vaccinations. We can't force anybody to get vaccinations, not at this point. So that's out of our control, but we can look at that data to help us understand some of the other pieces to go on these layering strategies. So what the CDC, in a nutshell, what the CDC is trying to do is say, and the state is saying, all of these are effective together. None of them individually is going to stop the virus, but when we do it together with, then we're going to have more success in stopping the virus, and that is the goal of that particular group. That's what epidemiologists in the Lake County Health Department, their goal is to stop the virus. We don't have control of the contact tracing. I didn't know that, but this is true. We have no control over contact tracing. When we call the county or go get a test, that gets reported to the county, and they tell us when the kids come back to school. And they will ask questions, as Vanessa was talking about these items and how well we are doing them. Hand washing and respiratory etiquette, that one's doesn't have a whole lot of impact, and we've always done that, so, we'll be more vigilant about that. But staying home, social distancing, ventilation, masks, and screening testing, that's going to definitely impact the contact tracing with the county, and that's where they have the leverage to say, if you don't have this, and if you don't have masks, and you don't have screening testing, that student who's a close contact, sitting within 3 feet of the other student who tested positive,
Yeah.
all of those students are out for 14 days,
Within
Or
3
that-
feet or,
3 to 6.
okay, so, yeah, that's my question. Because the requirements or recommendations were lowered from 6 to 3, so is it 3 feet or 6 feet in which they'll say you must quarantine for 14 days?
It's, if both students are masked, so if the positive case is masked and the close contact is masked, there's no quarantine necessary for the close contact.
Okay.
Of course, if you're positive, you're gonna be out, but,
Close contact is defined as
3 feet.
within 3 feet? Not within 6 feet?
That's at least
Within
3
3?
feet between students.
3
Okay.
feet out,
So as long as you maintain that 3 feet that
3
you were
feet.
planning on?
Yep.
You're good.
you're good. So
So-
that person wouldn't even have to
So key consideration here is mask.
mask.
And both masks, do they have a table or do they give
Both
scenarios where they say both masked, one masked, infected, masked, not masked? Do they do that? I mean, is there
No, not
a
yet.
table?
I'd love that.
So
They
they have,
don't.
well, that's what, yeah, that's why I'm
There's
at,
the
that
CDC
answers the
or
mask
something like that.
questions, right?
These are the questions we've been asking as
Yeah.
superintendents to run all these scenarios by, and
Yeah.
they don't have an answer for us on
Okay.
that
Probably
specificity.
shouldn't wait either, I mean, cause they never came really last year either.
No, they're not coming. I think this is, whatever we got today is about as specific as they're gonna get, I think, this year.
Now-
But then the Lake County could, it sometimes depends on, well, anyway.
Aren't we waiting for a report from the Illinois Department of Public Health within this week?
We got it today. That was the
That's the one I
That's
came
not
today.
confused.
the frequently asked questions, which gives
Is that from
scenarios.
CDC?
That's from the State Board of Education and the IDPH
Yeah,
combination.
it's both
Good.
IDPH and the state. Board
And
of
CDC,
Ed.
okay.
Yeah.
So, Jason, so this recommendation, and this is CDC recommendation, right? This
This is-
mitigation program?
Yeah, well, Illinois adopted that, so this is
So,
CDC, Illinois Department of Ed, Lake County.
got it. So it's recommending testing every student once a week, right? Is that?
Yes,
Okay. Who covers the cost of that testing?
the state of Illinois.
State of Illinois?
It is
Okay.
free.
So they bring
Test-
someone out, or they,
We can choose to have a third-party administrator, or we can choose to do it ourselves. If we choose to do it ourselves, the state will pay us $10 per test to
Okay.
administer that. And then a third party will come and pick it up. They bring it to the lab. There's a lab in Rockford. The claim is, I don't know if they're gonna be able to keep up with this,
it's a lot.
but they will turn it around. So if we test on Thursday, Friday before school, we will have the results.
And there's no
That hasn't-
concerns right now as far as test kit availability? You sure? But these would be delivered to us by the state of Illinois?
By the Shield company. So
Okay.
this was developed by the University of Illinois last year.
It is that
And
one.
then there's a I
told
then
you
there's
about
a
that one.
spin-off. Spin-off company, the Shield company is a spin-off that was created by this. And then the state invested in this for schools, and now they're making it available to every child in the state.
You remember that? I was like, hey,
Yeah.
Jason. And they wanna make it available.
Yeah.
And now this is full circle. How about that?
It's great if they can do it.
That's
It's
yeah.
great.
Especially it's not invasive.
It's not invasive, it's not sticking anything in your nose or mouth or anything, you just spit in a cup. So it takes,
What about parental
3 minutes.
consent?
Oh, the kids can opt out, or the
You
parents.
said they could opt out?
so we would do an opt-out, so we would say that every student K through 8 is going to be, maybe we'd do 2 different days for the schools depending on how we set it up. We have a meeting with, the Shield folks on Thursday with our nurses and possibly other administrative support, so. Yeah, we have to figure that out. It's a lot, it's not gonna be nothing. It's a big pain, which is why I've waited to do this until I saw what the implications would be if we don't, because I've been saying, if we don't do a testing protocol, what happens? So far.
Well, I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Okay, say the parent opts out. Okay, then what happens to the student? 2, what happens, I think the majority of the people in the district want their students to go back to school. I believe it was something about 70% say they wanted people to go back to school. If we get a large majority like that opting out, then what happens?
They couldn't do the test to stay thing.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I don't know if there's a percentage, that's where the judgment might come in. I haven't seen a percentage of students needed to do the surveillance testing. There's 2 different types of testing. One is some surveillance where we'd have every student once a week test. And that helps you catch things before, if it's going around and it's asymptomatic students in the building, you would catch it ahead of time and be able to act quickly to shut it down and stop the spread that way. So there's that first, but you don't have to have 100% of your kids test. Let's say it's 60%. I think at 60%, we would still be comfortable with that to say we would be catching people. That's the surveillance side. Then if there's the diagnosis side, let's say I have a symptom, I'm sent to the nurse's office because I have a sore throat. That you'd go home, and then the next day we'd have that information to say if that's a positive test or not. That's a diagnosis of a symptomatic student. Or the other that Vanessa was referring to that I have to read a lot more on because it just was trying to absorb that in a few minutes, was the test, was it called test to stay?
Test to stay.
Test to stay, where I'm a close contact. I don't have any symptoms, but my buddy sitting 3 feet away from me is COVID positive. I can stay in school, but I'm going to get tested on day 3, on day 5, on day 7, out from that exposure to see if I pick it up. If I'm cleared, each of those times I can stay in school.
Right. But what if we get a large number of, say, we only have 30% of people opting in instead of 60% of people opting in? Then what happens?
I don't know. Then it would be worthless, I think.
Yeah.
And the contact tracing and the isolation protocol.
We would
still
be
very
closing down
impactful
every
to
time
us
that there's a
as
case.
Yeah, I think so.
They haven't given specific numbers on that,
I don't know what it does
like
to
X
but-
percent.
Probably not
or-
the
No, there's no way.
Yeah, there's continuity.
There's no way you can give a percentage on that. It's gonna be case by case evaluation.
And Jason, I wanna make sure, I just wanna make sure that I'm really grasping the implications of this. So the state of Illinois is saying that we can adopt this type of mitigation program that includes all of these, and then if there's a kid who's exposed, there's very limited impact outside of that child and potentially some people immediately with the number. If we don't incorporate any one of these measures, it's out the door? Or is it kind of like, pick your top 3, or?
No, well, that's a good question. So that they have scenarios now, finally, that again, I have to read through more carefully, but generally they're saying, well, the CDC did say this. They said you can remove one of these if you have all the rest. And if your community transmission is in the low category. So if your community transition's in the low category, they're saying you can remove, pick your,
Hand
maybe,
washing.
let's say it's mask, hand washing. No.
Just as a
That's so
school.
gross.
Let's say you
Well,
want
let's say it's masks, right?
Let's
Because
say
that's
it's
the big
mask,
one.
because
Yeah.
that's the topic.
Yeah.
That's what we're really talking about. You can do that if you have low transmission and you have all of these other pieces in place, and that's what I think where the confusion has been placed in saying that the CDC is giving flexibility. Not really, not when you read it.
Right.
They're only saying you have the choice based on your local conditions. Your local conditions are what percentage of your population above the age of 12 is vaccinated, and they're saying 70% or more need to be vaccinated before any of these can come off. I think Millburn is our community because the county is close to that number, and I'm guessing that our community is above the county average. So assuming that we're above 70%, we're okay. The other factor is the community spread, which is low. Right now we're in the low category for sure, which is great. So we could choose, if we have this in place and everything else in place, to remove that if we want to. That's what the CDC
Or
is
make it
saying.
optional, right? Just make it
Well,
optional.
that's removing it. So, and that's kind of the challenge too, is if you make it optional for people and they choose not to, then you're choosing for everybody.
When it comes to quarantining.
And then when it comes to quarantine, so even with that, when it comes to quarantine, if kids aren't masked, they're gonna be out for a longer period of time, or more kids are gonna be impacted by quarantining, no matter what, if we choose masking. And we don't have control of that.
That would be their choice if it was optional.
That would be their choice then to
Parents
say,
would then have to deal with that
Right.
decision.
right.
So one point that I want to bring up, I have no scientific data to support any of this, but it's just, I feel like it's something that needs to be taken into some consideration, is also I feel like the optional mask option, could potentially set up kids for being ostracized in one direction or another, right? Like, it kind of separates the team, like, hey, the mask wearers
You're
were
seen
not.
as a rebel.
It could be,
Kids
and
think it's cool, right?
I just
They
feel
can
like
go all ways.
should it be the main factor? Probably not. Should it be a factor? Perhaps, yeah. Like, if we're trying to say we want to have some kind of cohesiveness and some kind of shared understanding of what we're doing, and then it's like, well, some of you can wear it, some of you don't, and it just, I don't know, I think it affects the dynamics.
And it's up to the
Kids
parents,
learning.
right?
Affects students learning, if they're feeling like there's a lot of tension, I think is what.
It affects everything. I mean, just them being here as a social person, right? Yeah, I mean, that would set up a lot. That's a good point.
And we just heard how it affects people negatively by having masks.
Right.
That's
I
what
know.
the parents are concerned. I mean,
No
it's
silver
a wide
bullet.
open debate.
Do you think, regardless, I mean, that's not a bad point, but I mean, you don't wanna lose half a class every time, 'cause there's gonna be positive cases.
It wouldn't be half, right?
Meaning
Anyone
just-
within the 3 feet, but we're not even sure what this
Just,
table
well,
is
so
gonna be.
even one, think of how one situation blows up though, from, one asymptomatic case with no masks. Okay, then you take the 5 kids that are sitting around them, if their desk is in the middle of the classroom, then you gotta look at who they sit with on the bus. Are we doing lunch?
Plus, they have to wear masks.
Are we-
That was part of the CDC guidance.
Well, yeah, but I
But
mean,
if they're optional in the district, are they gonna be mandatory on the bus?
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah.
management and the bus.
So
So
we
all
could-
these kids are gonna have a mask with them. They have to wear it on the bus when they're coming in, but then we're gonna let a portion of them take it off throughout the day to make things,
Regardless, we're gonna
to
be-
make things more complicated.
we're gonna be in a situation though that outside, I don't think we're going to we would mandate children wearing in recess using a mask, right? I don't think anyone's recommending the mask be worn outside, so they're still gonna be using it and taking it off at different points in time throughout the, and there's still gonna be lunchrooms, right? We're planning on doing a lunchroom approach where children are gonna be sitting next to each other without masks on.
Yeah.
So,
But do you think, we're saying we don't mandate kids wearing masks outside, but certainly during recess, kids are gonna be definitely within 3 feet of each other.
they are.
So this is just the condition that we're in, is that there's considerations on every side. And, interesting too, at the high school last year, so the scenario you're talking about how you've got quarantine and you impact all these people. My daughter was quarantined. Took a test, no, she was never positive. And yet, the guidance that we received is even if you test negative, using PCR test, still couldn't come back.
Why?
I don't know, but this is the scenario,
It's like a 10-day
this is
incubation
the
period.
scenario
Oh,
we're
is that
in.
what, alright.
This is where,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is where we're at, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? People have fatigued from seeing conflicting guidance, and so to say, hey, go outside and play, no mask on, but you're playing tag,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're just in this world, and that's where we're at.
But there is fresh air though and breeze, I mean, it is different, the ventilation is different, you're in Mother Earth's ventilation.
Yeah, still.
If you're good at tag, it doesn't matter anyway, because you always got that space.
And it doesn't apply in a lunchroom environment, or
Yeah.
you're indoors, you're eating without a mask on.
Yeah, but then we have more control of where the kids are at.
And they're 6 feet.
Oh, they
Oh,
will
they're
be-
6 feet for lunch?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, alright. My other concern is, I feel like if you go the route of not making masks required and you make them optional, you can't undo that later on if you decide it's wrong. Like, it becomes much more complicated versus just having everyone start wearing masks and then, well, I guess keep them wearing masks.
Unless you talk about contraction rate, right, or the rates within the community. That could
Yeah.
be the only justified quantifiable variable that you can identify. We can make masks optional up until this point. Once we reach this level of incidence within the community. But again, that's arbitrary. That would be us coming up with health policy.
Right.
And it would be arbitrary.
And it's
And
not
in the
supported by
absence
any-
of the Illinois Department of Public Health, and that's my confusion when I read that. So it's basically ISVE, the IDPH presenting CDC's guidance.
Yeah.
And the CDC basically has said, we say all this, but you utilize local discretion. Dr. Fauci just came out.
If local discretion is more stringent, not if it's more relaxed.
No, they didn't even say that.
I
They
think
didn't even
that's
say that.
kind of implied.
No, that would make sense,
I think
but
it's
no, they didn't
implied.
even say that.
Regardless
That's what
of,
it's really dependent upon.
regardless of the mask, if they're positive, they're out, right, for 14 days?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So
Sick
even
kids
if
have
two
to
kids-
stay home.
What's that?
Sick kids have to stay home no matter what.
Right.
And that's part of the mitigation too, is when kids are sick, they need to stay home, or teachers, or anybody who's sick needs to stay home until there's 24 hours after their symptoms are gone.
But there's a lot of asymptomatic transmission that could happen.
Which is where the surveillance testing helps. It's not gonna catch everything.
Yeah.
And it's gonna depend on, as the virus becomes more prevalent in the community, if it does, that's gonna be less effective too. All of this is less effective. And then you'd maybe have to do more strategies.
Regarding the screening protocol, would that apply to teaching and staff, teachers and staff as well?
Yes.
Yeah, because we know you can transmit it even though you're vaccinated. And all it's really doing is lessening the impact. It's not truly vaccinating and making sure you're not gonna get it.
It's gonna tell an interesting story a year from now, looking back at what these tests, if implemented successfully, what they were able to do. I think it's a good tool, especially
It'd be great if they can do it.
especially if it's free.
And if they're only gonna give you $10 each, it's not worth it. It's gonna cost you more than that. So, have them do it.
I think liability wise and also just for the sake of keeping as many kids in class as possible, we don't wanna stray from any of these unnecessarily. It's not worth it.
How about teachers wearing masks?
Have to,
I thought they were vaccinated, no.
but I thought you
You
just
can
said,
still transmit it.
No,
If you're
unvaccinated, they're saying unvaccinated, don't.
Right. You don't have to, but my question
The
is,
CDC is unvaccinated, do not have to.
right,
Wait,
Wait, no.
unvaccinated.
I
no,
mean-
vaccinated.
Sorry.
Do
Okay.
not- They
Alright.
do not need to mask,
I'm
but
like,
what are
did I
we,
just miss a whole chunk?
Let's
of
make it
something?
even more.
what would vaccinated for
Partially
teachers?
vaccinated.
what if I-
Vaccinated staff, CDC's recommendation is vaccinated staff and students do not have to.
So can we, I mean, middle school wise, can we ask for proof, keep on record?
I don't know if you can ask, you can't make it a condition of coming to school. We can always ask people if they give it to us, they can. Where that would come into play is for quarantining. So if Stephen becomes positive, and I am next to him in class, whether I'm masked or not, if I show my vaccination card, I'm good, I stay.
Even though you could still transmit it.
Yeah, it's pretty low.
We had incidents of state senators going from one place to another, there were 50 of them, five of them were positive and they had been vaccinated. That's 10%, it's incredibly high,
Yeah.
right? You don't have 10% of the community positive. And, it's a little dangerous because if you have been vaccinated, you're gonna feel, you're not gonna manifest symptoms. So I'm not saying let's go full on everybody wear, I'm just saying it's gonna be tough to have the kids masked all day,
Oh, man, that's,
talking to staff that's vaccinated and no masks on. And I know the staff, it would be bad for them to wear a mask all day.
Yeah.
Clearly, there's just so many competing interests here.
to Lisa's point, you could just put it on the parents. Your choice, and like you said, it becomes their problem. Kid goes home for 14 days, they gotta figure it out, right? There's more transmission of the flu. I mean, just
It's
as
a
like a
shared
devil's
problem, though.
advocate, you know?
The more kids that happens to, though, it's worse for the district. It's harder for the teachers to teach.
How many positive cases did we have last year amongst the students?
5.
How many kids are here?
11.
1,100.
5 that came into the building, there were more positive cases, but 5 that came in.
So we're talking
that
about
were
maybe
sent
10
home sick.
cases a year, if we project that out.
You can't
And,
quantify it like that.
yeah, John, and if you do that, that's not taking into consideration the amount of people who have actually been vaccinated since that time. So you could, you could multiply it by 2, but it may be less than that.
Yeah, but it's also a much more infectious variant of the disease. I mean, there's too many other factors that could play into it. I don't know that you can make that apples to apples comparison.
I thought
And
that
the fact that,
even
like,
with this variant, the Delta variant we're talking
Yeah.
about, is no more infectious than past strains. At least that's what I've read. Again, not a virologist, epidemiologist. But even, we just heard the number of deaths from the flu in 2018 exceeded the number of deaths from COVID.
By a lot.
By a lot, yeah. So it's not simple.
alright, anybody have anything else on this before we move on?
Sorry, Jason, we may have taken away from what.
Oh,
Your
is this the last
presentation.
page? You have more?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not ready to make any recommendation to the board yet, or any decision on what we should do. I guess I'm gonna ask the board first of all, do you want that responsibility? Do you want the board to make that decision? Do you want me to make that decision? Like last year, ultimately, with the board's blessing, so to speak. I believe last year we did a straw poll, kind of where we're feeling, because obviously I would want the board's support no matter what we do. But as things change rapidly, sometimes that gets to be difficult if the board made a decision and then we have to wait a full month for a meeting to change it. I'm okay with that. I just want to be clear. The other question that I have tonight that I'd like a little bit of feedback on is, do we reach out to the community and ask where they stand on some of this? There's pros and cons to that, and our teaching staff. If we say, do you want mask mandates or not, then you're saying, okay, you're taking a pulse of the community to see where they're at, but you're also going to put yourself in a position of, is this a voting decision, or is this a decision that we are going to make as a board that's going to be an informed decision based on what? Because if it's 50-50, which I imagine it is.
You can always just say you're gathering feedback.
Yeah,
That's
just
that's
data.
one component,
Yeah.
because we don't have clear guidance. This is the two groups, that should be saying, here's what the CDC's recommended, and here's our guidance, and here's what we're telling you to do. I can't figure another group other than the Illinois Department of Public Health who has jurisdiction over Illinois and the public health of Illinois. So I'm not sure why they haven't said, we're gonna take this guidance and give you some operating parameters. I don't understand that, but it doesn't seem that that's gonna happen. So again, it comes down to school districts making these decisions on how to operate and try and protect the public health, drafting their own policy and operating procedures to protect the public health. And so I think it's a good idea to say, we've received guidance, we'd like to just gather some feedback from the community to understand where you're at on it. This will be considered when making and formulating a decision. Because I'm just afraid you're gonna be in the same position as last year, where there isn't clear guidance and procedures defined by the Department of Public Health.
Well, I think a couple things. I think one, we kind of know already
Kind of know.
what the community feels about masking and split.
I don't know. Do you?
There-
Do you
there's
think,
two,
Stephen?
yeah, I really
I don't
do.
think we do.
I think that there's two sides of the road. And it's either this side or it's that side.
I think there's
As
at
a
least three.
business, the school is a business, runs best when kids are in school. So when you look at this, it's telling you this is a path. Maybe it's not as clear as we want it to be, but this is a path to keeping as many kids in school as possible. It's a business decision. You make that decision. You don't throw it back at everyone to get more charged about the issue.
I don't think it's getting people charged about the issue. You're asking a question, and you make business decisions on what your customers want,
Well,
right?
but
You can make decisions to throw something out there and sell it, but if you don't know that anybody wants to buy it,
But ultimately, will it matter? Like, are we
I
gonna look
do
at,
think
are we
it
gonna
can
look at
matter.
these FAQs? And are we gonna ultimately decide what's the best
I
course?
do think there's, you said two sides to it. I think there's at least three. Mask mandate, no mask mandate decision.
But
where
to
it can
Jason's
be in
point, if you make it a
practice.
decision, it's over.
Where it can be in practice impacting the results in quarantine statistics. But it's still different than having a mask mandate.
here's what I think, when we ask parents their opinion, they're thinking about, many will be thinking about their children, but as a board, we are charged to think about the student body, and I feel like it's our responsibility to say, to us, we value students being in school as much as possible. That's the goal, is to keep the students in their classrooms. And the means and ends, if that's our ends, what's our means? Well, I clearly feel like it's, unfortunately, I don't want my son to wear a mask, I know it sucks, but what is the means that's gonna get us to that end? Because, and that's, I don't know, I think that has to be the thought.
But what we've been talking about is that there's an avenue of being able to do that without a mask mandate in
That's
place.
right.
So in order for this board to be able to defend that position, we have to say, why is it that we can, there's one camp that's going to say, or actually, I think everyone's gonna say, yes, we want our kids, for the most part, we want our kids back in school. And how you approach that can be two different ways. One of them, the parents will think that a mask mandate is unnecessary. And they can defend it by saying, we can still have a mitigation plan in place without masks. And the other side is
Does that
gonna
not
say.
affect the quarantining though? Did I misunderstand it?
If
Yeah,
there,
well,
but
well,
it
social
will.
distancing is one of them, is one of those things that would have to be in place. So, as long as we adhere to the 3-foot social distancing.
But you're the caseworker at Lake County Health Department. You get the call. You're analyzing it based on that criteria. Don't you want to be in line with as much as that criteria as you possibly can versus deciding?
CDC said 4 of the 5 or 5 of the 6.
back
So
to
those
that
kids wouldn't
previous
have to
slide.
quarantine and
I
unmasked,
don't
right?
Yeah.
No,
Thank
that's
you.
exactly
I
what he
don't know.
said. So if
We
there's a
don't know,
positive
that's what I'm
case,
saying, that could impact that quarantine, right? So we don't know. That is a variable that we don't know because clear guidance has not been given
Well, I
on
think,
that.
well, when we look at the FAQs, I feel like there were a couple clear guidance on what they were saying that if, when you're deciding who's gonna have to be quarantined, a lot of it had, page 7, made a point on it, page 5.7. I think, when we'll review the FAQs, I had gotten the concept that if they're not masked, that there's gonna be more quarantining and isolation necessary. But maybe
Which
I
would be
didn't understand
logical,
it.
which would certainly be logical,
Yeah.
but it would also be contradictory to
Well,
this
but they're
guidance
saying
here.
that's your flexibility is to drop masks, but just so you know, if that's the flexibility you
There it is.
choose, the consequence is
Could have
gonna be
more
more quarantining, and I'm pretty sure that's.
Yeah.
That's
my
what I
understanding.
understand in general too.
Yeah.
I don't know the specific scenarios. we're
Even if
talking
they're
about.
the 3 feet, even,
Yes,
Jason, I have a question.
yeah,
You said you expect us to have a special session about in August, correct?
yep.
Okay, when would that special session be? Would that be in place of the committee of a whole meeting, or would that be another night?
That would be the committee of the whole meeting.
Okay, could we table this and get more information, including polling the community by that meeting?
Oh, absolutely. So, John, my question for the board is, what information do you need and what is the decision that you're going to arrive at? So, yeah, we're not making any decision tonight. I'm just trying to get a sense of where the board is on this particular issue
So
as we make that decision. So when I make a recommendation, I'm okay. So let me give you the scenario. There's a local school district where the superintendent made a recommendation for mandating masks for all students.
Right.
The board said, thank you for your recommendation, no. The decision that we're making is, we're going to make it masks optional for all students. So that's an option that you have as a board, should you so choose.
Right.
And I'm okay with that if you want that responsibility or not. I'm good with that approach. Or do you want to say, give us a recommendation? What is your recommendation? And we can try to come up together with something that's, I don't know.
I feel that this is, my position would be more for the latter, but ultimately it's the board's decision. I think we're going to end up aligning, or we should try to align with your recommendation because it's a very educated recommendation. But the alternative being, we're going to say whatever the superintendent decides is going to be the decision. I would rather the board officially make the decision because it provides the community, or it's representative of the community, us being representatives of the community versus the superintendent.
Yeah.
And I feel like it also gives you the
agree.
cover that
I
you,
absolutely agree.
that we should provide to our superintendent.
Yeah, this should be a board decision. I think what should happen is the superintendent should collect the data, including polling the community, combine it with what the CDC says, combine it with what the Lake County Health Board says, combine it with the data that we have out there, and present that information to us at the next meeting. And we can make a decision based off the information presented to us.
Yep.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I don't think that we're gonna gain anything from, we stand to lose more from engaging the community. People that wanna speak out are gonna speak out about this.
I would
Yeah,
agree
you're
with
gonna
that.
have a meeting where we read a lot of customer complaints, very individual circumstance issues. And it's gonna take up a lot of our time, we're gonna discuss it ad nauseum, and we're gonna be in the exact same place.
I don't think we did that last time. Last time when we polled people on their, even the teachers, right? We didn't discuss things ad nauseum. It was getting a pulse of the community and understanding, but we didn't exhaust it. I think it just gave us some sense of where we're at now. I actually think that's important. One of the things you always try to do is communicate and understand where the community is at. I think that's important. Now, it sounds like your concern is creating and I don't know how it would manifest, Stephen, whether you're saying it would create an uproar within
No,
the
I
group,
think
or
it's
whether we
in,
would invite a number of angry people.
well, I don't know that we're ever gonna fill all those chairs.
Yeah, so that,
Yeah,
to me,
but-
that to me is not a huge
Even
concern.
that, I mean, we're making decisions on whether or not to have remote learning or in-person learning, and the people were very upset, and
What happened?
And it looked the same. I think that it's easy, given that question, with how politically charged everything is, to get a lot of interesting feedback that's not necessarily useful.
It's okay.
I mean,
You write the question
How
in a
could
way where you
feedback not
don't
be?
get feedback.
useful?
I mean,
Just because
you
we-
don't need to put an essay response in
Yeah.
in the questionnaire that you send out.
That's true.
What you do is you write it in a manner that says, okay, we have to follow certain guidelines, including wearing a mask. Please let us know where you stand on the support of mask requirement.
Yeah.
Well, make it the optional thing we can vote on.
Mask
Are
mandatory,
you
B,
opposed,
masks are
strongly
voluntary,
opposed,
C,
in favor of
masks
this?
should be banned, pick
And then-
one. And
the way, so the way thought exchange works is there's gonna be
pick B or
opportunity
C
to,
and send it back, and that's it. And if they wanna complain more, they can come down to the board meeting and voice their concerns.
if I'm alone on this, I'll stop, but I think it's the wrong way to go.
I mean,
Anybody else agree with me, or?
I actually do agree, and part of the reason is that their opinion isn't gonna change this set of matrix.
Not at all.
Like, we have been told, this is the way it is, this is what you have to follow. Their opinion is not gonna change any of that. And what it could possibly do is we can say, we in the board have been entrusted to make this decision, we have the guidelines, and we're gonna do what's best for education of the students, and as a board, we value keeping, or maybe we don't, but if we've said, as a board, we value keeping students in school consistently, we believe the best way to do this, based on the guidance we've been giving, is this plan. But I think now that I understand we need to listen to the community, I'm not saying shut them out, but in this particular case, it's gonna give the illusion of, we're taking a quick vote, and whoever shouts the loudest, they're gonna get their way. Because that's where the discourse is.
Can I just put forth a scenario? So let's say that we reach out to the community about this, and we say, I don't know how we would word it, but we have to do 5 out of 6 of these in order to meet this requirement. And then we say one of them is potentially masks, and we got 80 or 90% of the community that says we support masks. I think that's a very strong argument for us to say, yes,
They're
masks
okay.
should be included.
Yeah.
If it's in the inverse, and then 70% of the community says, you know what, masks should be optional, well, that's a very strong argument for masks being optional, because either way, you're right. You're not gonna be wrong as far as at least these guidelines are concerned, if you mandate masks or not. So I think getting the pulse from the community would be very helpful in helping make my recommendation.
And because this matrix, how it's addressed, it can change, right? They're telling us that 5 of these 6 must be adhered to.
But it's gonna affect, and I guess maybe we communicate that, is to say, but if we don't mask, that's gonna increase the amount of quarantine and
Right.
isolation.
Yeah, I've got no
And
problem with
so,
that.
so I would wanna be, I don't know.
That's how we'll
I'm not gonna fight this
manifest
one to death.
change.
In my opinion, it's not the best idea, but if the board, we all feel like it is, then I'll stand behind it and say, all right, let's get
Yeah,
involved.
and I would say you can't go wrong hearing from people. We have a tool to facilitate that. That's very different than having us all go into the gymnasium and say, all right, what's everybody's opinion on masks?
Right, I think you word it a certain way, it's just another data point, and I think we need all the data and that we can get. And we are reps of the community, well, here's the community, this is what they're saying. I think it's a valuable thing to have.
Because, you gotta have 5 of the 6. I think the 4, you'd never steer away from. So then you've got the 2. I think you also I would wanna hear, what are your thoughts on allowing your children to go through testing, screening, because they'll need permission. So when you need consent, parental consent on that, and potentially, what are you gonna do if you have a mask mandate and the kid doesn't wear the mask? They're immediately kicked out? Right, so, there are options here, that's all, and I just don't think you can go wrong hearing from the community, especially in a crowdsourcing tool. I just don't think you can go wrong that way.
It's just a loaded
Unless
question.
you use inflammatory speech.
I mean, you can't, the way it's been described, you can't ask that in one question.
Well, it's gotta be crafted
I
well.
mean,
Yeah, but I don't
You
think
can't ask all
everybody is
that in one
emotional
question.
about masks.
It's not,
I think there are groups, there's polarization, but I don't think everybody is emotional about masks. I think most people would prefer not to have them, but I don't think everybody's emotional about
No, nobody likes masks.
it. Yeah, nobody likes masks, right?
And nobody's wearing a mask right here, so.
That's right.
I
So
get it.
there's
I get it.
another thing. We come in, it says mask required, and I walk through, no mask.
under the
And I wondered
assumption that we're
about,
vaccinated.
I wondered about how that would be perceived. I wondered how that would be perceived if we did have a room full of people and we're talking about mask mandates. As I was pulling that handle open, and I wonder how it would be perceived if we put a mask mandate out there and yet we're all sitting here without masks.
For
Or we
unvaccinated.
have different
children.
strategy for middle school and elementary, though. Yes.
That's for, so
Yeah.
this is all requiring
They can't
unvaccinated
get
They
individuals, right?
cannot. They can't
So if you guys aren't vaccinated, it's still recommended that you would wear a mask right now.
recommend it, yeah.
Right?
And it's just logical, right? It's just logical.
But if it was that important, why wouldn't they say required?
But so
They
I
say it's
mean, I think,
recommended,
yeah,
I
right?
think
So
that
they
a lot-
leave it
So that's what I'm
muddy,
saying, we need
Yeah.
the IDPH to make a call,
they're not gonna
and they're not
say
going
anything
to.
else.
So I just wanna really quick from a liability perspective say that numbers, while low, are rising in Lake County and in Illinois. I mean, I have a habit of watching them. I don't know what it means, but it's on the uptick. It's pretty steep. To go against any guidance given to us, as much as we don't like it, think it's stupid, it just is putting ourselves out. It's an unnecessary risk in my mind. To say that, yes, this is what they recommended, but we nitpicked it and we found out how we could get away with only doing some of it.
No. Their guidance is doing some of it.
But it's gonna
We didn't
change.
nitpick,
It's the numbers
Their
are going
guidance
up, it's gonna
is-
change.
their guidance is doing some
I'm
of it.
looking at the Lake County site now, and it's what? hold on.
Just gotta look at the graph to see the curvature to know what's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's
It's going up.
almost
And is that
non-existent.
positivity rate or
What,
incidence?
hold on, John, what's non-existent?
The curvature.
You're looking, you might be looking at the
You
vaccine
need to look, you need to look at the,
Just scroll down.
What's total numbers, like
the,
percentage increase?
the cases.
I did the same thing when I looked at it.
It was what?
There was a 75% increase.
It's 80% higher in Illinois than it was a month ago.
Hold on. Let me look.
But the numbers are so low that, I mean, it's,
It's
in
still-
absolute
it's still low.
terms, it's still
Yeah,
low,
we would
but it
see
is
that
And
in
that is-
really small counties too.
And but that is a testament to this region's vaccination rate, which we're sending a population of young people that are entirely unvaccinated or almost entirely unvaccinated. That's who we're talking about.
And also that are most immune to the effects of it,
Sure.
right? I mean, they were, and in fact, we had in the past, the CDC say, Walensky, she was saying that the very last people that should have been affected were the students. They should have been kept in school the longest and taken out at the latest. So, I mean, there's more to it, and that's why the emotion of it is out for me on this individual thing, because there's been so much.
According to the Lake County website, over the last 7 days, residents under 18 was 3.8 per 100,000.
Thanks, John.
3.8 per 100,000, and that's not even here, right? It's inclusive of some of that.
Without looking at that, that does.
What's that?
I said without looking at what he's talking about, I have no opinion on that. And I think that we're gonna learn from the FAQs, and I think that it's gonna be, you know, it sounds like everybody wants to ask, let's poll, let's just go, let's move forward with the thought exchange. I don't know if you wanna run it by us before you send it, or just send it,
Probably just send it,
just send it. Alright,
if that's okay.
that is okay with me, is it okay with you guys?
Yeah.
It's okay with me?
I think it'd be helpful just to share the entire guide, like,
Oh,
the
yeah.
full,
So what I would do is, first of all, there has to be some education so
Yeah.
that people understand what they're choosing and the
Mhm.
consequences of this.
Mhm.
And also, I also wanna be very clear that, we don't have a screening testing right now, yet. Hopefully we'll have that set up in time, but until that happens, this is not.
Then it's not optional, right?
Then it's
And
not
you gotta
optional.
do your 5,
Then you, or
because you
whatever.
don't have the
it is,
option
right.
of the 6th.
So this is
Right,
just gonna
yeah.
muddy
So, what's that?
nothing.
So, I just want to be, so we still maybe, no matter what happens, my recommendation would be, unless the board tells me different, my recommendation would be to start the school year with masks, unless this is all in place and we have low transmission in our community. Because that's a realistic, that's part of this, that's pretty clear in the guidance. There's a lot of things that are pretty clear in the guidance, and then there's things that are less clear. But the general idea is, when we have low rates of transmission in our community, and when we have these mitigation factors in place, then we can look at, hey, can we take one of them away, such as masks?
Where are we with the screening testing or getting that
But
in
I'll
place?
tell you by Friday.
Okay.
We meet with them Thursday to see what is all involved with that.
Jason, so what's, in 2 weeks from today is when we're gonna be making this decision?
Yeah.
Okay.
2 or 3 weeks, I don't know when that, probably 2 weeks. Veronica, you know the date of our next meeting?
The next board meeting?
Yeah.
I can look at, I think I have it.
I can't
It's the
switch my
9th.
screen, I'll lose my,
August 9,
August 9th.
It's a cow?
Cal. And
And
special.
even if we're not ready then, we can still call a special meeting, I hate to do that to the board, but we could call a special meeting on August 18th, after 17th. What really we're talking, and parents are pressuring us because they're making decisions on whether or not to send their kids to school based on these guidelines, because there are parents that won't send their kids to school if we don't have masks.
There's a question too.
And there are parents who will not send their kids to school or look to go to a private school if we do require masks. So parents need to have that time to adjust as well.
It would be good to know what those figures are, how extreme those are, on both sides.
Right. That's why you're in a difficult, we're all in a difficult position, unfortunately.
So 17th and 18th sounds a bit tight.
That's a little late, they need more
Yeah.
than that. I say we just make the decision next meeting. I mean, that's the day before school, like,
We can at least have an idea, and maybe your idea is, we're gonna follow these, and when it's in the low transmission, we're gonna continue to monitor, once we get the testing, the screening testing in place, we're gonna monitor actually how many kids test positive. We are gonna have some real good data as we move through the school year to see what's happening too.
And provided by an outside source, which is nice.
Yeah, it won't be our outside, but it's our kids.
Yeah,
That's
but I'm
real
saying
time.
Shield
Yeah.
will be doing the testing
Yeah.
and providing results.
Right,
So, that's better than us doing that, right?
and that is, they've got very clean, good data from that source. We can use the Binax Now test is also available to us, but that's not quite as,
Self-administered, right? And if they can do it, great. My only concern is the turnaround.
pretty quick. Not as quick as the Binax, but it's a little more accurate.
Yeah. Binax is down to 65% when there is no culture.
Yeah.
But if it's culture positive, it's 93%, 94%.
Right.
But
So everyone becomes an expert in epidemiology over the next 2 weeks?
yeah, no problem.
Alright.
yeah, the Illinois Department of Public Health comes out with stricter guidelines. Yeah,
I feel the former is more likely.
yeah.
Alright, on to future agenda items. Press policy update. Fiscal year 2022 budget review and adoption. Report on shared services or outsourcing. Everything on that one?
That's something we have to do every year for our audit.
Okay.
The board has to.
I don't think you have to vote on it, but you have to accept it, I believe.
Which
I'll have
is-
to, I'll get all the wording when it comes that time.
It's one of those weird things that we have to do every year.
Yeah,
Alright,
it is part of the annual financial report. And before they can put it in there, you have to approve it, or we have to share it with you.
salary compensation report.
Same,
Yep. And the administrator and teacher salary benefit report.
same. That all has to be approved by the board. That's something we do every year. It's posted on our website.
Right.
So it's part of our transparency that we are forced to do, but it's a good thing.
Anybody have any questions about any of those? No? Alright, Jason, do you have anything additional?
Nothing additional at this
No?
point.
Let's talk about masks.
Let's talk about masks. I can't not talk about masks on vacation.
Dr. Johns?
All right,
Nice. Nice change of pace, finance world.
Well, we're getting, tomorrow, I put in my report about where we're at with the generator. The radiator was leaking, so that caused the generator not to run more than a few minutes when we had that water issue on June 18th. Then the electrical contractor has now connected the generator also to the sump pumps in the lower level. Tomorrow afternoon between 12 and 1, they're gonna shut off the power and then see if it really works like it's supposed to, because you can't tell if it's gonna power them unless you turn off the power. But the generator's large enough that with the other load that it has on it, it shouldn't be a problem. So assuming that the generator was repaired properly and the electrical contractor ran the wiring properly, then that should be working.
Steven, sorry, your comment just spurred a thought. The lights out in front, street lights, the
Yeah,
parking
those were
lot lights,
damaged by lightning
are those,
on June 18th as well.
well, are they repaired? Are we good?
I don't believe they've been repaired yet. I know that we've had the electrician out. I'd have to check to see. It was not only the ones in the front, but also the ones in the back.
Oh, okay.
And some of them actually had like electrical marks on them, like where they had, it's kind of scary when you think about it, but yeah. So that it was that. We also had a copier that the main circuit board in it was fried, and then the generator that didn't operate, which had nothing to do with the power outage, but was something that it brought that to our attention. The asbestos abatement has been completed. Got my fingers crossed that when you were talking about iPads, supply chain for everything is a problem. The flooring is in stock that we have ordered. The problem is that they're having trouble getting people to work in the warehouse so they can get it loaded onto the trucks to get it to us. So they're working through that, but it may be, it may be right before school starts before that all gets finished being installed. I'll know more, that we can, Jason can update you in his emails to you, but that's an issue. I also found out that the desks that we ordered, I'd gotten a call last week from the company saying that another school had ordered desks that were supposed to be shipped the beginning of July, and they got notified theirs weren't going to ship till the end of July. Ours are supposedly now going to ship, I think it's either the 16th or 17th of August.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but we'll be okay. We'll be okay. We have enough that we can make it work. But, so, that's a delay. And then we're dealing with this flooring that is in the warehouse. It's just a matter of getting it from the warehouse to the school.
Can we go pick it up?
I don't know where it is.
Board birthday.
Board birthday.
Yeah, I don't know where the warehouse is.
We'll have a special
Your
meeting
weight
when the chairs
belts,
are out.
It'd be great if it was in.
Yeah, I actually got a call from a manufacturer's rep on that today, so it's gonna be challenging. But it's just one of those things that the positive is it's not just us that's experiencing this.
Yeah.
And, it's just I think a part of it has to do with the fact that, I probably shouldn't say this, but some of these people have figured out they can make more money sitting at home than growing unemployment than they can going to work. Because there's,
saying that,
That's a
don't worry
big
about it.
part of it.
there's restaurants, all sorts of businesses are, struggling to try to find people.
We couldn't get electricians. We
Okay.
make pretty decent money.
June treasurer's report, I'll have that ready. If we have a special meeting, we'll have it for that meeting. I was still working, actually, Friday on getting all the transfers made and making sure that the balances were correct after we made those transfers. So that ended up taking about a day longer than we thought it would. Otherwise, I would have had the report for tonight. Audit update, we met with the auditors July 16th. As a result of operating not only the summer food service program, but the dollars we got from Lake County, as well as the ESSER grants, Title I grant, and our other federal grants, we're gonna be over the $750,000 cap, where now we'll have to have a single audit. And I have a checklist of the things that they need to know for that, but that'll add a few $1,000s extra cost to the audit, as well as more time and effort for the auditors as well as my staff. Unemployment, the governor did sign legislation believe it was in June, that allows, non-instructional staff that typically don't work during the summer to be eligible for unemployment. This is the second year in a row they've done that. Previous to that, if you were seasonal and you got notice of reasonable assurance, then you weren't eligible for unemployment. We still don't know. I did find on, not our attorney's website, but on another, Robin Schwartz, which is a, another attorney firm that does school work, basically saying they're hoping that, they're anticipating that at least at some point, the state unemployment, IDES, will update their guidance that they gave last year. Now, last year, and I don't know if it was in the legislation or if it was in their guidance, the state paid for half of the cost of that unemployment, and the feds paid for the other half. I don't know I'm assuming the feds would still pay their portion. I don't know what the state's gonna do with theirs. So I don't know if this nobody knows. We don't know if this is an unfunded mandate and we'll have to pay this out of our budget, or if the state's gonna come up with the money to pay it. But now they're all eligible. So that would include all the paraprofessionals, bus drivers, before and after school club, anybody who's seasonal who is not, basically not a teacher, psychologist, social worker, administrator. So it's probably gonna, I'm gonna guess, we've got maybe 50 to 75 people that would be eligible, probably closer to 75.
Were these claims you would have seen already?
No,
No?
because people are just finding out.
Is it retroactive?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it'll be retroactive. I had a couple early in the summer, and then I've gotten a couple more, and then just last week I got like 4 more. So I'm guessing that the union sent out correspondence. Last year they sent out instructions, taking them step by step through the process to apply. So
Okay.
I just wanted to, give you a heads up. And like I said, I don't know if the district is going to be responsible for any of those costs or not.
How many do we have of non-instructional staff, roughly?
Well, roughly,
112,
oh, is it that many? Okay.
give or take.
And what do they get per week from unemployment?
Depends on what their wages were.
Okay.
So,
That includes 12-month employees though that can't draw.
right, so
Okay.
it's only the people who work
Just this,
the
okay.
school week, the seasonal jobs.
All right.
So I know there's roughly 30 paraprofessionals, I'm thinking, and 20 bus drivers, ballpark, well, actually less, maybe 17, 18. So we'll just see what happens, but, and then the before and after school, probably 10 or 12, depending on who's come and gone. Then the next item is the budget calendar. We'll have some discussion at the next meeting about the budget. I'll present the tentative budget at the August 23rd meeting and ask the board to approve putting it on public display. And then September 27th, we'll have the adoption. And then it has to be posted on the district website. And then here's where so the budget has to be posted, but then we also have to post that total compensation package of all employees that make, and it's not how much they make, it's the package. And I'd have to look back at it to see whether that includes insurance or doesn't. Anybody that total compensation package is more than 75,000. So we have, even with teachers, some teachers qualify and some don't, so. That's about, I think that was it, wasn't it?
Mhm.
There's something else underneath there.
Bus driver shortage.
Oh, yeah. Just to make you aware, and we did have one of our bus aides that, passed her bus driver test last Friday, so we'll have, and I included that number in here, so I think we have 17 and a half drivers now, and with half, we have a retired person that works half-time. But at the beginning of the 1920 school year, we had, was it 23 drivers. So we've had people who have retired or whatever. I have another one that's anticipating retiring in December. So I'm just letting you know that we may have some issues and we may have to look at, depending on how many students apply to ride the bus, we may have to look at having staggered start times at the elementary next year. So we would, you know, like we did during the pandemic, we brought in one load of kids and then brought in the second and then did the middle school after that. I'm hoping that we don't have to.
How many bus drivers would you need to avoid that?
We don't know.
Well, with what we have right now, I'd wanna have at least one more driver than I have in order to be comfortable. And then that's also looking at some of our, and I'll be talking with Adam Rollins a little bit more tomorrow as far as, I know we have two of our private school students that attend private school that we're looking at cabbing. And Laura has talked to a cab company that says they have the ability to do that for us. But it depends on if any of the other students attending private school could go in a cab rather than on a bus. A lot of those, it's like one or two students that are going to a location. So if we can do that, then I'll be more comfortable with the number of drivers we have right now, but, you know, I will continue to try and recruit drivers as well, but everybody in Lake County is looking to recruit more drivers and concerned about whether or not they're gonna be able to have enough drivers to transport students.
Public service announcement, if you know of anybody who's maybe looking for a part-time job, that's a really good one.
That's my retirement plan.
That is a good retirement plan.
I think the starting salary is
We'll be
$21.50 an
interviewing
hour,
Mr.
and they're guaranteed 4 hours a day.
Yep.
For 177 days, plus, I think they get 12 paid holidays.
It's a great
I think it's
service.
189 days at 4 hours a day.
And you get to meet a bunch of great kids.
And we will train them as well, so.
Do you have to have your, what is it, class D?
CDL.
You have to have a CDL
CDL.
and a bus driver permit. So it does take, you know, 2 to 3 months probably, depending on how quick, what they have or what knowledge they have. You're looking probably at a couple months, and there's now beginning in February, there are even more requirements as far as time they spend on, you know, studying and driving, etc. Right now, it's a little bit more flexible. Once we get, although they may extend it again, that was supposed to happen a year or two ago. But right now, it's a date in February when that starts to occur, and then there's very specific mandated things that, as far as number of hours of behind the wheel and classroom kind of instruction that you have.
Good gig.
So, if we can get people this fall, it'd be better.
Dr. Johns, can you tell me who issues those mandates? What department covers that? It's at the federal level.
It's at the federal level.
Okay,
It's federal.
okay.
Now, the school bus driver portion is done by Illinois,
Okay.
and that's separate from the CDL portion.
Right, okay.
But they've kind of been gradually adding things. I think we're in the second year of a 3-year phase-in for the random drug testing, where those, any positive results have to be uploaded to a federal database.
Right, okay.
And so that was like the first phase. The second phase is dealing with the training of drivers.
Okay, Dr. Johnson, anybody else have anything? Alright, board reports, does anybody have anything for the board to share? No? Alright. No closed session tonight, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Unless
I'd
you
like to
guys,
make a motion to adjourn.
We'll second that one.
can we get a roll call, please? All in favor? What do we gotta do?
Just all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
John's still with us.
I am, I'm not dead yet.
We are adjourned, thank you, everybody.
Thanks for hanging in there, John.
Thanks, Steve.
Talk to you later.
Oh, and
I've got some signatures.
I've got some things to say, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot to have you do the thing for the budget last time.
Okay.
Certifying that you actually approved the budget.
Okay.
The board approved it, I think is what it
Let me know
says.
when you're ready and, I'll get, well.
Oh, broadcast.